This has never happened before. One of the most anticipated games in existence was acquired by a AAA publisher, later canceled, that part we have seen before, and then was reacquired and resurrected by its original creators to immediate and overwhelming success. You could not write a more beautiful story, and it is one that I am so happy to tell you guys. Hytale, only 2 months after its reacquisition, has already released into early access to over 2.8 million players. 2 months. They've only had the game for 2 months, and they already hit 2.8 million players in one day. And it's likely more than that now, as even though the game is in early access, players are loving it right now. Yet again, we have an unfinished indie game that's playing better and offering more than AAA does. This never gets old for me. I've been playing the game myself, and while it's definitely early and it still has some work to do, it's good. It's really good. And the only reason that we hadn't seen this game sooner is because of the AAA expectations that were forced upon this game. It needed to be bigger. It had to be bigger. It had to be more than what it was. It needed to be on every platform. And then they brought in new management that pushed the original developers to the side, made these guys feel like imposters. The guys that just released the game in 2 months are the ones that were made to feel like imposters. Who exactly is the imposter here? That's what we're going to find out today, while we're talking about what is likely going to go down as one of the greatest comeback stories ever. But before that, today's video is sponsored by Boot.dev, and they're one of the few platforms that actually understand why people bounce off a lot of this stuff. As somebody that dropped out of video game design school myself, I will be the first to tell you, it is not that coding is too hard, it's that it's unbearingly boring. It's nothing but walls of text, reading a lot of text, a bunch of fake examples, and making you feel like you are making zero progress. People don't quit because it's too hard, they quit because it sucks. Boot.dev flips that by making backend development feel interactive and goal-driven. You're not just watching videos, you're building projects, earning XP, leveling up, completing quests, and solving actual problems the way that you would on the job. And when you hit a wall, you got Boots, an AI tutor. It doesn't just dump answers on you, it asks follow-up questions and tries to push you to understanding what you're doing instead of just copying code and moving on. They've also just launched Training Grounds, which is basically unlimited practice. You can grind challenges until things click and then move forward when you're actually ready. All the lessons are free to read and watch. The interactive features, the hands-on coding, the AI help, the progress tracking, that's a paid tier. And the reason why all of this matters is because back-end development skills actually go somewhere. They're practical, transferable, and they are pretty much used everywhere right now, including roles that can be remote. And there's a lot of people that are making over 6 figures a year using this stuff. If you want to check it out, go to boot.dev and use my code LegendaryDrops to get 25% off your first entire year on an annual plan. The link is in the description below and the QR code is on screen. Thank you to boot.dev for sponsoring today's video. Guys, I am struggling to wrap my head around how any of this is real. You know, when I first got into this job, I didn't know if there was ever going to be enough news for me to cover, and I am proven wrong every single month. We are talking about a game that was pronounced dead. After nearly 10 years in development, Hytale was officially canceled in the summer of 2025. The studio was shut down, staff was laid off. That was supposed to be the end of it, and yet here we are a few months later. The game is back in an early access, and it's one of the biggest releases of 2026. So what the hell happened here? Well, it's probably best that we start from the beginning. So Hytale originated from Hypixel, the largest Minecraft server network in the world. Long before Hytale was ever even announced, Hypixel had already built what most studios struggle to: massive player counts, persistent communities, and entire game modes that were all running inside of somebody else's engine. At its peak, the network regularly handled tens of thousands of concurrent player numbers. It set Guinness World Records for Minecraft concurrent player numbers and nearly 12 million unique users, and operated more like a live platform than it was a modded server. Hypixel wasn't just popular, it was proof that a small team of modders could run large-scale multiplayer systems, manage economies, support creators, and keep players engaged for years. That success is what made Hytale feel credible in the first place. It wasn't a pitch from nowhere, it came from people that had already done the work at scale in public for years. But the pivot towards Hytale wasn't driven by ambition or creativity, it was a very specific shift in control, and one that we are all too familiar with. In 2014, Microsoft acquired Mojang, and Notch, the game's original creator, exited the company. Not long after that, Mojang began enforcing stricter interpretations of Minecraft's end-user license agreement, likely at the behest of Microsoft. The core changes were not aimed at Hypixel specifically, but it was landing squarely on servers like theirs. Monetization could no longer include anything that meaningfully affected gameplay, which is kind of vaguely worded, which makes it a little bit difficult for some of these servers. Hypixel wasn't running any type of blatant pay-to-win schemes or anything like that, but they were operating complex progression systems, perks, and server-wide economies that Microsoft now claimed full authority over. They didn't want anybody else getting in on their action. Overnight, it became clear that years of work could be rendered non-compliant by a policy decision made entirely outside of their control. Even if Hypixel stayed within the rules could change at any given moment. For a team that's running one of the largest multiplayer platforms in the world built on somebody else's foundation, that just made it non-sustainable. So owning their own platform wasn't about greed or ambition, it was about survival in their case. And Hypixel developers would then announce that they were working on a new internal project that year. Fast forward 3 years later, and they drop an announcement trailer on YouTube to the tune of 62 million views. And it wasn't just because it looked pretty. Hytale was promising things that Minecraft simply did not offer out of the box. Built-in modding tools, proper world editing, custom servers, and an actual adventure layer with RPG-style combat, quests, and progression. This wasn't install mods and hope nothing breaks. Creation was the core of design, and that mattered because at the same time that this was going on, Minecraft was becoming more locked down and more corporate. Hytale was positioning itself as the opposite, a game where creators weren't working around a system, they were the system, and that's why a lot of people latched onto it so hard. Following the trailer in 2018, Riot Games would show interest in Hytale, and it made complete sense. The game just pulled tens of millions of views on YouTube. The community reaction was enormous, and Hypixel had already proved that these guys could operate at scale. Riot initially stepped in as an investor, but that relationship would escalate in 2020 when Riot would fully acquire Hypixel Studios. Now, it's really important to understand the timing here. This is a period where major publishers were aggressively expanding, buying new studios, and pouring money into long-term bets. On paper, for Hypixel Studios, it looked like the best possible outcome. More resources, more stability, and the backing of a company that had already successfully turned a mod into one of the biggest games in the world. But this is also where the story starts to take a turn. After the acquisition, Riot began pushing for changes that fundamentally altered what Hytale was being built as. One of the most critical decisions they made was the abandonment of the game's original engine in favor of a new one designed for better cross-platform ambitions, console, mobile, everything, everywhere, all at once. That choice meant that they were going to start over in very real ways, flushing nearly 3 years of work down the toilet. And just as importantly, the game's original selling point, being built for modding from the ground up, now became harder and harder to realize. Now, at the same time, scope didn't narrow, it expanded. New features kept getting added, new mechanics, new ambitions layered on top of a project that was already being reassembled piece by piece, which then sent them into development hell. During this time, Riot was also pushing for studio expansion, bringing in new management to lead Hypixel Studios, and this is where internal trust finally started to fracture. According to Hytale's former IT lead, the problem wasn't subtle. Hytale, what could possibly go wrong when you hire new leadership that thinks the original team is incompetent? Oh, the whole project ends up going in circles until it dies? The community should be angry at the mismanagement that stole the opportunity for Hytale to flourish. And alongside that technical and managerial breakdown came something more personal. Simon was very open about how the pressure changed the way the team saw themselves. In his own words, "Then I think the pressure of having the Riot Games label plus mega viral trailer, bigger funding, and higher expectations made us all doubt ourselves back then. On a personal level, I couldn't live up to the new higher expectations and was given an option to leave by Riot. The team was so good that I felt like I was an imposter at that point." That line matters because it explains why so many of the developers didn't just leave, they stepped aside. The project that they were confident in shipping suddenly felt like it wasn't enough anymore. What had been moving fast and imperfect now had to be flawless, universal, and future-proof. And under all that weight, the people that gave Hytale its identity were slowly pushed out of the center of it. At that point, Hytale wasn't failing because it lacked money, talent, or ambition. It was failing because the structure around it began to suffocate it. So it came as no surprise to anybody that after 10 years in development, Hytale was officially canceled in the summer of 2025. And that should have been it. I mean, we've seen this kind of story play out 1,000 times by now. We're likely going to probably see more stories similar to this that are going to play out because indie games just keep getting more popular every single year. I mean, look at how quickly things flip for these guys. The entire idea of Hytale was to build something from the ground up for modders and creators first. That's what they were trying to do. And then right off the rip, that just gets thrown out the window because the game has to be multi-platform. And why does the game have to be multi-platform? Money. Because it's not about the game anymore. It's about how many wallets that game can reach. I mean, isn't Riot the company that had $500 skins in League of Legends at some point? Maybe they still do right now. After that, they bring in professional management. You know, it's a AAA game after all, so you got to have those kind of guys around. And Riot's also trying to chase the next Minecraft. So once those guys come in, once those industry professionals take the wheel, the next thing you know, the scrappy indie modding team of developers that made the game, that created this game, are brushed aside, drowned out, overwhelmed, all because they don't have the pedigree. As a result of that, the game just slowly withers and dies. But that's not where the story ends. No. These developers, they took a stand. They knew their game, they loved their community, they understand what they had, and they believed in their game. They came back for it. They reacquired it, and they did the one thing that AAA can't do: release the game. After Hytale collapsed under Riot, people started asking Simon a simple question: is there any chance this comes back? At first, his answers were basically no. He was honest about it. He said that he had the money to maybe run a 30-person development team for a while, but under Riot, the new studio had ballooned to over 150 people. He wasn't sure that he could handle or even wanted that kind of responsibility anymore, and he talked about just wanting a quieter life and just being done. But of course, the community wouldn't let that go, and eventually, after enough people kept pushing, he finally cracked, and he laid out exactly what it would take to make this all possible. No corporate hedging, no PR language, just a blunt and personal answer. I get it 100%. I'm even down to put $25 million by myself to finish Hytale. No Kickstarter, just raw passion, high pressure, and high risk. Reduced scope, legacy engine, PC only first, small team, cut unfinished features, get players in ASAP to support development. I even already have a dozen legacy engine veterans working with me. I haven't reached out yet. I'm just thinking about it now. This would impact all aspects of my life, so I need to talk to my family first. And crazy enough, that is exactly what happened. Now, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Riot Games could have easily just hoarded the IP and let it rot. This industry loves to do that all the time. Instead, after talking to multiple buyers, they chose to sell the game back to Simon. Now, once the deal closed, everything started to move fast. Simon immediately began rehiring original developers, the people who had worked on Hytale before the Riot era reboot. Within weeks, the game was already rebuilt around the legacy engine, and just 8 weeks after reacquiring the IP, Hytale launched into early access, not as a perfect game, but as a playable one, built on a foundation that already worked, with new assets, progression systems, and tools that were being folded in as development continued, hitting 2.8 million players on day one, and likely more since then. I have never seen such poetic justice before. This is instant validation for all my biggest criticisms against the AAA model. Simon and a stripped-down team managed to launch something that is arguably more finished than what we routinely get from massive publishers, and they did it in 8 weeks. 8 weeks after getting the IP back. That tells you everything that you need to know about what was actually holding Hytale back. It wasn't the talent, it wasn't the vision, it was the expectations, it was the bloat. It was a team that was blown out far past what this project needed. This game could have been out years ago. That's obvious by now. And the people who were the closest to shipping it, the ones who just actually right now just proved that they could do it in 2 months, were treated like they were the problem. They were sidelined, second-guessed, and pushed out by new management. This industry has put way too much faith on resumes and degrees and experience, and not nearly enough trust into people who have already proven that they know how to make something that people actually want. Look at the past couple of years. Some of the most successful games that we have seen didn't even come from pedigree studios at all. Expedition 33, last year's breakout hit, that was made by a team of people that were largely self-taught, many of whom have never even shipped a game before. And yet somehow, the people who built the most successful custom server network in Minecraft's history weren't trusted with their own vision. What are you guys doing? What happened to Hytale under Riot Games is nothing more than overambition fueled by money and ego. Riot didn't just see a good game, they saw a chance to build the next Minecraft, so they scaled it like one. Massive funding, professional management layers, a hard pivot into multi-platform support that kneecapped everything that made Hytale special, modding built from the ground up. Once that all fell apart, the solution became internal systems, in-house content, more features, more mechanics, anything to compensate for what the community was supposed to provide. And inside a 100-person development team, up from 30 people from where they started, that turns into a game that's made by committee. Endless discussion, constant rewrites, very little forward motion. The project didn't fail because it lacked effort. It failed because it was pulled in too many directions by people that were trying to justify their presence and the money that was invested into it. Strip all that away, and the game moves again fast. I've been playing it, and even in this early state, it is genuinely good. You can see the Minecraft DNA and the material progression, but we see that in just about every single survival game. But instead of scaling downward, you're scaling outward. If you want better gear, you have to explore. You have to push into new and more dangerous areas. And because the biomes and enemies are varied by type, exploration actually feels like exploration. I'm taking my time with it right now, doing the things that always get me into trouble with a lot of these sandbox games. Suddenly 1,000 hours disappear because I'm too busy building houses, crafting rooms, storage setups, farms, things that I probably don't even need, but I'm just doing whatever the game lets me do, honestly. And that's more than enough for me. I'm not here for a perfectly polished AAA experience. I want a sandbox, something fun to mess around in, and also something that's going to grow with me. Simon understood that, which is why he took the gamble. He bought the IP back, and he made a very deliberate choice. PC first, no compromises, no console, no mobile, no chasing the mythical AAA Minecraft, because nobody actually needs that. Nobody actually wants that. What people want is a game that works, respects their time, and gives them the tools to make it their own. And that's exactly what Hytale did. Not only did it release fun and playable, but right off the rip, it delivered on the promises that they made to players and creators years ago. Even before launch, the team announced a partnership with CurseForge, meaning full native in-game mod support on day one. No workarounds, no external launchers. And actually, it goes even further than that, and this is something that I didn't really fully appreciate at first until I realized that it was there, but Hytale supports per world mod selection. Each world can have its own mod setup automatically. You don't have to constantly swap your configurations or break any of your saves. It just handles it all itself. That's a system that is designed by people who actually use mods and make mods, because modding is the soul of this game. It's where the creators came from. It's the entire reason that Hytale exists, and under Riot, that soul was sidelined in favor of multi-platform ambitions. Once those constraints were gone, it snapped back into place almost immediately. And the results of this were almost instant. Within 72 hours of early access, Hytale already had crossed over 2 million mod downloads. Players weren't waiting for content, they were building it themselves, expanding systems, filling the gaps, stress testing ideas. The community just picked up the baton almost immediately. And that's the through line of this entire story. Hytale didn't fail initially because it lacked money, talent, or ambition. It failed because it stopped being built with its players and started being built for this abstract future that just never arrived. What brought this game back wasn't a miracle or a massive budget. It was just restraint, a smaller team, a more narrow scope, a willingness to ship something imperfect and let it grow in the public. Hytale didn't need to be the next Minecraft. It just needed to be itself. The 8-week thing is just crazy to me. I guess you're going behind me. All right. The eight, whatever, threw me off there. Yeah, the 8-week thing totally is just crazy to me, because that means that these guys likely had the game in development for the first 3 years, doing their own thing, then 7 years under AAA, and then now here they are going back to the legacy engine, which likely means that they're just going back to the original 3 years of development that had started this whole thing, which just goes to prove that the money and too many voices in the room just clogs things up too much. The game just didn't have to be that big. It wasn't that deep, but they tried to make it that deep, and that was the big problem here. And one change that I would really like to see in the games industry is a lot of these companies getting away from trying to make sure that every single game is the next big thing. This is the future of the next genre. This is the future of first-person shooters, or whatever they said for High Guard, stuff like that. Stop doing that stuff. Because you look across the industry, and all it's doing right now is it's causing more layoffs, more studio closures, and the games and the players just can't handle it. It's just not working. Every single one of these games are coming out, and they're either failing to launch or failing at launch. I don't see how any of that can be worth it for these guys. Stop worrying about trying to make the next big thing and just go back to making your thing. That's what you should be doing. That's what's always worked for, years now. When I look at this kind of situation and I see the direction that the studio has gone, and especially because they're choosing to make this game alongside their community, that's like the whole purpose of this game. I just find it crazy to me that was the one step that it seems like Riot just threw out the window. I'm sure they had an idea for user-generated content and stuff like that, because that's what a lot of these platforms are built around. But if you were going multi-platform off the rip, a lot of that stuff is going to make it really difficult for you guys to be able to make that work. That was the whole purpose of the game. You threw that away. What were you guys trying to make? I'm happy that it was saved. this is one that I'm really happy to see. I really love what these guys are doing. I love the heart and the soul behind it, especially when you have Simon literally putting his money on the table. I mean, this guy is basically laying his life on the line when it comes to this game, and he did it without hesitation, it seems like. And that's a rare thing to see. Now, I have noticed that they also have creator codes for this game, so they try to support smaller content creators or just content creators in general to try to entice them to continue to make content about it, which keeps them relevant in the algorithm, which is a great thing. Now, I don't have a creator code, nor will I get one. I'd rather all the money just go straight to the developers on this one. That's something that I would rarely say, but I will say it in this case. Go support this game. Go support what these guys are doing. It's a great game. It plays awesome, and immediately when you fire it up, you can see the future that they're chasing. I'm down to chase it with them. Anyway. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, share it on social media, grow my strength, grow my influence, make me omnipotent. I can't even speak right now. Follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter. Catch me in the next one. Stay cool. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. Peace. Say bye.
Family, 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 family.